Councillors, and welcome to this evening's council meeting. Please be seated. Before we formally commence this evening's business, can I please remind all members of the following? Please can all mobile phones be kept on silent or turn off during the meeting where possible. Please remain focused on the topic being discussed, and I must emphasise not to repeat points which have already been made. Please show respect to other councillors, avoid interrupting, and respect the position of the Lord Mayor. Please indicate if you wish to speak, and I will then call you at the appropriate time. Please can members indicate any point of order which relates to an alleged breach of a standing order or statutory provision, and specify which standing order or statutory provision they consider has been broken. These should be addressed to myself as chair of the meeting, and I will seek advice as necessary. Members should not seek responses from officers. Any personal explanation must be confined to some part of a former speech which appears to have been misunderstood in the debate. If referring to any matter in any report, please indicate the item and page number to help others in the room. Finally, members are reminded that if they leave the chamber during consideration of an item, they will be unable to take part in the vote on their return. But please feel free to request a comfort break if needed, and we will adjourn at an appropriate time. The first item on the agenda this evening, at agenda item 1, offers the opportunity for members of the public to submit an advance public question, and I can confirm that this evening no public questions have been received. The next item on the agenda, agenda item 2, is declarations of interest. If any members have any disclosable pecuniary interests that relate to business on the agenda and have not already been included in the register of interests, to declare them before any discussion takes place on the item. The next item on the agenda, agenda item 3, is on page 5, which is the minute extracts for minutes 97 and 98 of the Customer Focused Scrutiny meeting held on 22nd of January 2026, which is for members to note. These are here for your information, and you may wish to make any comments on the minute extract during debate on the 26-27 budget at agenda item 7. At agenda item number 4, starting on page 9, is the minute extract of minute 92 of the Executive Committee meeting held on 16th December 2025, relating to the 26-27 budget strategy and medium-term financial plan. Again, this is for noting. Members, please be reminded that the recommendation was agreed at Council on 13th of January 2026, and is included for your information, and you may wish to make any comment on that minute extract as part of the debate on the 26-27 budget at agenda item 7. At agenda item number 5, starting on page 13, is the minute extract of minute number 93 of the Executive Committee meeting held on 16th December 2025, relating to the Council tax base and NNDR 26-27 for noting. Again, please be reminded that this was a resolved matter and was considered by Council in January as part of the minutes. Again, it's here for your information, and you may wish to make any comments on the minute extract during debate on the 26-27 budget, agenda item 7. As agenda item number 6, starting on page 15, is the minute extract of minute number 94 of the Executive Committee meeting held on 16th December 2025, relating to the housing rent and service charge, 26-27, again for noting. Please be reminded that this was a resolved matter and was considered by Council in January as part of the minutes. This is solely here for your information, and you may wish to leave making any comments from the extract to the ensuing debate on the 2026-27 budget. And finally, moving on to agenda item 7, it relates to the 2026-27 budget, and the details and recommendations are set out on your agenda papers. I now call on the leader to introduce the proposed budget for the 2026-27 period.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In addition to the resolution of page 17, I would like to add further recommendations that on the 27th of January 2026, the Licensing Committee resolved unanimously that the Licensing Committee recommends the following: that Council approves for the period from the 1st of April 2026 to the 31st of March 2027, that fees shall be set out as specified in Appendix B. Minutes of the above meeting have been published and will be received by Council on the 3rd of March. These fees can be found on pages 228 to 230 of the agenda pack and form part of the budget before you today. Well, there is a further amendment that I shall be, or recommendation that I shall be making, is that the following as submitted be approved: the revenue estimates for 2026-27 with an additional budget added of £130,000 for tidying, cleaning and improving the public ground, to be found from the general fund working balance. I'll move those and we'll speak later to the recommendations.
Thank you, Leader. I will now be taking the amendments.
I second those recommendations.
Thank you. I will now be taking the amendments in the order in which they were received. So firstly, budget amendments from the Green Group. I invite Councillor Moore to propose the amendments from the Green Group. These have been published as a supplement. Councillor Moore. Is there a seconder? I'm assuming you're proposing. Is there a seconder? Is that Councillor Rees? Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think colleagues will see that all our proposals are aligned squarely with the council policies and council priorities. Can you hear me?
Can you put the right hand button on and the left off?
Try again.
Okay, does that sound better? Fantastic, thank you. We're ready to begin. All of our policies are aligned fully with council priorities or council policies. And indeed, we are running the proposals that came from the Scrutiny Committee. Although the council is working towards its end in 2 years' time, we need to look to our future here in Exeter. With our proposal around community asset transfer, which for many does feel like herding cats, we are looking to ensure that our council-owned assets and property and land, which is really important to the fabric of our communities, can be held in community hands. The council already has a policy on that, and we want the council to really activate it to secure a long-term future for community assets. We know this is hard work, but we need to make it as easy as possible from a bureaucratic point of view. And we have to do the bureaucracy so that there are checks and balances and we can lock in long-term community benefits. To do this, we have to work alongside our community to secure long-term and viable futures for a community asset or a piece of land. Secondly, we have a proposal around our parks and green spaces. We know these are much loved and valued, and there are many community groups who are involved in that. The feedback to the council tell us that many people value these spaces. The budget consultation feedback also tells us that people want to see more investment in our parks and gardens, and both things can be true. We love them and we need to have more investment in them. So we welcome the indication from the portfolio holder that the towns and cities nature accreditation is going to be pursued, and our budget proposal enables the council to dig into its funds to help parks and communities to bloom. And finally, we know that the climate crisis is not sometime in the future, it is now. We are seeing the seasons break apart. We are seeing greater intensity of rain in the winter and more of it, and in the summer they're actually getting drier with more intense rain events. So we need to adapt. This is even recognised in the draft local plan that will be examined in the next couple of weeks. So this is more than an emergency plan and emergency and resilience planning that Devon County Council is involved in. If we, as the City Council, are serious about leadership across the city on climate, we need more than smiles and sunshine. We need to work with institutions, businesses and our communities on the actions we need to adapt our critical infrastructure, to retrofit our homes and make more use of nature-based solutions to deal with the increased rain and heat. Climate adaptation, when done properly, is a really strategic action that works with our communities, and our proposal will enable that to happen, and it needs to happen now, well before 2030. And just in terms of money, we do have the funds. We can bring the general fund down to its minimum level of 3.1 million, and as you can see in the budget book, it says this, we can afford to do these things. The percentage of 14.2% means the general fund minimum is at the higher end of what's expected for a council. We can afford to do this. Our communities can't afford to wait.
Councillor Rees, did you wish to speak now or later in the debate?
I'll wait. Thank you.
Right, well, the amendment is now open for debate. I see any speakers. Councillor Reid and then Councillor Weaponhall. Councillor Reid.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Yes, I want to speak a little bit to the amendment that we proposed to fund a climate adaptation plan. As you all know, I am very much the councillor in favour of sunshine and smiles. So I'm very sorry to put a little bit of a damper at the start of what I want to say to illustrate the importance for this. Which is, I'm going to just read a little bit from the UK government's, the current government's Adaptation and Research Innovation Framework, which was released last year, April 2025. This is from the government's chief scientific advisor, who says, climate change already challenges us with storm, flood, fire, and heat wave events regularly in the news. These challenges are increasing even as we seek to limit climate change and will threaten coastlines, infrastructure, human health, natural and food systems. And our ability to adapt to the changing climate will be critical for safeguarding our economy, our society, and our natural environment. Achieving climate resilience requires widespread action across governments, business, academia, and civil society. In many situations, the action we need to take is clear, including organisational planning for change and investment in resilient systems to avoid damage and to avoid greater costs in the future. And I want to read a small bit as well from a government report which was released just last month, January 2026, called, and this again is a government report from this current government, sits on the official government website, and it's called Global Biodiversity Loss, Ecosystem Collapse, and National Security. And this is a national security assessment. And it says, global ecosystem degradation and collapse threaten UK national security and prosperity. The world is already experiencing impacts including crop failures, intensified natural disasters, and infectious disease outbreaks. Threats will increase with degradation and intensify with collapse. Without major intervention to reverse the current trend, this is highly likely to continue to 2050 and beyond. Ecosystem degradation is occurring across all regions. Every critical ecosystem is on a pathway to collapse. All countries are exposed to the risks of ecosystem collapse within and beyond their borders. So, like I say, I am always in favour of sunshine and smiles, but this is the background against which we find it to be extremely sensible and prudent of Exeter City Council to fund a climate adaptation and community resilience plan to protect our communities, Lord Mayor, from the worst effects of biodiversity and climate crises, and to enable our local government and communities we serve to face the challenging future with resilience, knowing that steps can be taken locally to mitigate the effects of climate change, and knowing that those steps are taken. There are concrete local actions that we can put in place, such as sustainable urban drainage and warmer homes initiatives that are vital for our communities, and these absolutely form part of what's needed to adapt locally to the increasing climate crisis. And the crucial element that this local government can bring to the party, more than we do now, is to work with communities to really strengthen how communities can respond with resiliency to these existential threats that we are facing. There are some really great examples nearby to us of local councils that are really working with communities on their climate resilience with all sorts of initiatives, Exeter Cup, for example. And as you know, I have great confidence in this council's ability to deliver excellence. So I fully believe that if this council had an allocation of funds for this task, I feel confident it could deliver something truly meaningful for our communities and really secure and protect the citizens of Exeter. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Weavenhall and then Councillor Banyard.
Thank you, Chair. I want to put a bit of flesh on the bones of our proposal to allocate 50,000 to the Parks and Open Spaces team. It's a win-win, is the simple, the first point really, because it's completely in line with all our existing policies and strategies as a council. And the critical point is we believe this will secure better and lasting outcomes in an area that has been, as many others have been, financially squeezed in recent years. So that's the first thing, it's going to get better and lasting outcomes. Also, the kind of work we're proposing would be, and there's obviously wiggle room within it, but it will link directly to council work on climate resilience and adaptation, biodiversity and local nature recovery. And the third point, and I think this is my favourite, one of the proposals it's to be able to allow the Parks team to invest more in working with communities and NGOs to draw in funding and sources from other people so that it isn't just about what the council spends. So in other words, it's speculate to accumulate. I believe that some of that money will draw in really significant lasting outcomes and money. And one example would be, we have some outstanding friends of groups and trusts in the city, sadly not that many, but the Goat Walk Trust, the Hoopin Valley group that is relatively new. This is the way we need to go, that our green spaces get absolute buy-in from local people and are open to drawing in funding from other sources in a way that a council never can be. So I would recommend the amendment to you all because it's win-win. We're going to get lasting outcomes and it will really allow the council officers to galvanise and facilitate action and activity from other organisations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Banyard, then, before you start, Councillor Banyard, are there any other people wishing to speak? So after Councillor Banyard, I will then invite Councillor Rees to speak.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to say a few words in favour of our amendment for a climate adaptation action plan for Exeter. Last week, a wall in my garden fell down, It fell down following 6 weeks of unusually high rainfall, according to the expert who came to have a look at it. We're living in a world where the unusually is becoming more often the usually, because climate change is here now, isn't it? Adapting to climate change does not mean we give up on our net zero 2030 targets, because mitigation is essential, but adaptation is now essential too. As the group of REIT puts it, the pivot to adaptation is now little more than common sense. And who doesn't like a bit of common sense? What this funding does is modest but important. It allows us to access some technical expertise and develop a proper plan, one that involves the community, because the evidence is that stronger neighbourhoods building better trust with mutual support in the face of flooding, heat and other local risks is good for everyone. So we propose to fund this through a £50,000 adjustment to the minimum reserve levels, a small investment to prepare our city for the future. I think this is practical and responsible and forward-looking, and if you think it will stop your garden wall falling down in the future, then please do vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Rees, then Councillor Moore has the right of reply, followed by Councillor Bialik, who may speak after Councillor Moore as mover of the original motion. So, Councillor Rees.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you. I'd like to speak briefly about the wider context within which these amendments came about. I want to start by saying how delighted I am that we have completed our first full round of budget scrutiny this year, starting with our meeting back in June. And this is something that's been discussed and planned over the last 3 years. And I'm really grateful to all of those involved for supporting this and seeing it through. Obviously, the finance team, Democratic Services, the executive, and the 2 previous chairs of customer focused scrutiny, who I worked with, Councillor Vizard and Councillor Harkhouse. Over the year, we have monitored the in-year spend as well as looking ahead and inputting into future budget decisions. This is an evolving process, as some of you have already heard me say, which I hope will continue to develop and strengthen over the coming years. And as I shared recently with the executive, we need to ensure that the dates of the meetings, for example, align so that this scrutiny process really adds value and is useful to both the finance team and the executive. So please do feed in to this process to streamline it and further develop it in the future. As you will have seen, our last customer focused scrutiny committee meeting, our finance director welcomed input from the committee members. And these amendments that you see here were actually proposed, discussed and voted on in that meeting. I very much hope to see this develop further in the future so that more suggestions for the finance team and the executive come forward through this process. I believe these discussions should be collaborative and drawing upon the wide range of knowledge and wisdom we have amongst our city councillors across all parties. So, although these amendments are being presented tonight as amendments from the opposition, they actually come through an agreed process of scrutiny. And after our customer focused scrutiny meeting, I presented these recommendations to the executive. I just wanted to say we've worked really hard this year to make customer focused scrutiny committee a genuinely collaborative space where important discussions can take place and recommendations made, regardless of party affiliation, Lord Mayor. And as you know, as those of you in the committee already know, this is something I'm particularly passionate about. So one final point is that this has already been mentioned, that these proposed amendments support the wider council strategy. That is very much the spirit with which these proposals were made. They aim to enhance and support the important work already going on. They're not in opposition or contradictory in any way. They all fit well within the council's agreed objectives and the council's wider strategic plan. So, That's the spirit that they were proposed to support the strategic aims of the council through the scrutiny process, which is transparent and cross-party. And I do hope, therefore, that there will be support for these amendments today. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Moore, you have the right to reply.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Are we sure we can't see any hands up from the opposition? Has nobody got anything to say? Not even how awful the proposals are. They're not awful. Oh, that's good. That's good. It would be really good to hear some debate about them. I would welcome that. These things are put forward on issues that are of critical importance to our communities. The issues around the climate people are worried about, people approach us. The issue about community assets, we've had plenty of debate about that in council over the past year. And the issues of our parks and gardens has been raised in the consultation. So we're happy to be here all day talking about it. We'd hope to have a dialogue with you. Unfortunately, it's been a bit one-sided. We would still urge you to support this. It is possible to do that and to make a difference. We only have 2 years left. This will be probably the last budget where we can make amendments because next year will be an LGR. If we need to act on these things, we need to do it now.
Leader, Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll try and stick to the issues before us. The amendments, Lord Mayor, nobody can disagree with the spirit, as it was mentioned by Councillor Rees. Nobody disagrees with that. And yes, it did come from scrutiny and the executive. And if I've missed something, in none of those presentations was any money talked about. This is about budget. So nobody can, please do not try to shame us on these things. This is about budget commitments. And I see nothing in any of these, Lord Mayor, which goes to £50,000. Yeah, well, how is it going to be spent? Where is it going to be spent? What are the projects? So there's been no detail in any of this. These are the reasons why myself and my group will not be supporting the amendments. However, in the spirit of these things, I think you will notice during the presentation, the speech I will make and moving the proposals later, that I have addressed these issues. Maybe without money, but I have addressed these issues, and I hope that leads to somewhere where Councillor Rees said, moves to the spirit of these issues. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. I now move to the vote. May I see those in favour of the amendment? Those against? Abstentions? Councillor Mitchell.
Point of clarification or order. In another place, we were instructed that all amendments and votes on budget issues were local votes, named votes. I just wondered if we've done a hand voting. I know the main one is, but it doesn't relate to amendments, as it does in other places.
I'll take advice. There certainly will be a named vote on the substantive budget proposal. Councillor Mitchell, if I can ask a point of clarification, are you suggesting that there is something in our constitution standing orders that indicate we must have a named vote on every issue? If so, can you let us know to which you're referring to?
All I'm suggesting that in another place, shall I say, not far away from us in Exeter, that the legal advice we got, and Councillor Ketchum was there as well, trying to double our council tax, that on every vote, on every amendment was taken was a roll call vote. And obviously the budget's always been, I just wanted clarification that we were clear. I have not read in depth our standing order.
You haven't seen it in our standing orders. I mean,
So as we know what's going to happen to the amendments, there's not such an issue.
standing order 13.
13.
1-3. No, 3-0. 3-0. Can you look at standing order 30? 3-0. The advice I've received is that whatever the constitution of other councils may be, our council only needs to vote on the substantive motion at the end. That does not stop people asking for a named vote if they wish. But no named vote was requested, therefore I'm looking for abstentions. There are none, and so that amendment has been lost. Moving on to the second budget amendment from the Liberal Democrat group, I invite Councillor Michael Mitchell to propose the amendment, which again has been published as a supplement. Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Is there a seconder?
Yeah, I'll second.
Thank you. Seconder, do you want to speak after Councillor Mitchell or reserve your right until later in the debate?
I'll reserve my right, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I don't know whether I've got my 5 or 7 minutes here. I'll try to contain myself. I think, first of all, I need to explain the context. And I think it's already been elaborated by Councillor Moore to extent the situation we find ourselves in this year that is slightly different than some other years that this council has faced. First of all, I think all of us would like to thank the officers for all the work they put into this budget, not just this year, but each year. And on behalf of my group, I'd like to thank David and his team for the immense support they give to opposition groups when we wish to discuss issues with them. It's vital to us to be able to put reasoned amendments forward. I think, first of all, we need to identify, this is not a political speech, I should point out, this is a non-partisan speech, the backcloth that we face as a council in relation to the rationale then for our amendments. The actions of the Labour government in providing a 3-year settlement, which is to be welcomed, establishes a spending envelope for this council going forward, and I think we must say thank you for that. But disappointingly, to maintain that, this council is expected to maintain that spending envelope by raising council tax at its maximum level without a referendum and collect 100% of that tax due because year on year after this year, the government grant element decreases. So our room for manoeuvre is extremely limited as a council going forward, however long we remain in existence. As we already know, the original business rate settlement for this council is embedded in this budget. But only a few days ago, we find the government has made, I think it's what we call a U-turn, which meant that this council lost £1 million of business rate income this year. So again, restricting our movement for what we might wish to consider for future. We're also overlaying all of this is the uncertainty on local government reorganisation and what the shape of Devon and its future authorities will be, and whether everything is kept to schedule and whether everything will take place on time. And at the same time, we're instructed business as usual, so hence we're here with this year's budget. And of course, all of us are concerned for our communities, for Exeter, and especially for our employees going forward. And of course, now we are faced with a situation of elections on May the 7th. And that, facing elections on May the 7th, which again throws the situation regarding this budget into slight complexity, in that it is possible, if whatever the voters decide, that the administration will change on May the 7th, maybe 8th. So this in many ways is a temporary budget until we know the results of the outcomes of those elections. Yep, sorry, thank you, thank you. So we know the position is that the Labour Party, the administration opposite, have to retain 6 seats of 13 to maintain administration. So we wait and see, and we know what happened last year. We only wish to make one minor change at this stage to the budget, got that, and raise 2 initiatives which have financial implications in the longer term for us as an authority and for UA, which we think should be worked in. Almost like the State of the Union, this is our only ability to raise issues to put on potentially on future agendas. We've raised the issue of Exeter citizens' advice on numerous occasions and its funding issues. We've brought it to scrutiny and following recommendations to the executive, rather than to restore direct funding, which had been in place to the tune of £75,000, an arrangement was made for reduced rental income from them for the use of buildings in the civic centre. And this is continuing, and again, we welcome that. But, as we all know, the needs of the citizens' advice continue to grow, and demand is growing for their services. Whilst they are functioning mainly with a voluntary workforce, they still have professional staff to support their work and their other support services. Currently, Exeter Citizens Advice only receives funding from Devon County Council as another authority, to the tune this year, passed yesterday, for £73,000. Other councils in Devon support Devon CA, which is a different organisation. We are proposing a grant of £50,000 from this council to help recognise the role and importance of the CA that carries our city's name. We are proposing the money given to CA should be linked to longer-term contractual arrangements regarding the generation of income for us as a local authority to offset that money that we give them, because they do work that generates income for this authority. We do this at this time, in particular, because we believe if it becomes embedded this year in us, Exeter City Council's budget scheme, there is a chance, we do not know what's happening with LGI. There's a chance, whatever the shape of the LGI is involving Exeter, that could be a budget item carried forward. But if it is not there, the councillors representing Exeter, whatever shape the new authority has, who believe that we should be supporting it, will have to fight the fight all over again to a far greater extent, because it's not aligned in the budget pattern. Without our support, this year, Exeter Citizens Advice is running a deficit already of £105,000. They're raising money, 25,000. They've got interest on some money, but they're already, before the start of the year, running that deficit. I genuinely believe all of us agree they are a worthy cause that need our support. The other 2 points, which are, as I say, flagging up issues, and we flagged them up before, etc., and some of them looked at, is the issue of licensing charges in relation to HMOs. These are partly laid down nationally, you know, and what we're suggesting is, yet again, we have a review of those, because we are a centre, whatever the shape of the new UA, to have a large number of HMOs in regard to that. And if we find that we are at the maximum that we can charge, I think then is the time to put pressure on our MP to speak to the Minister and either seek to a rise in those fee levels, or allow local authorities to set their own charges in relation to the circumstances of their area. The second point relates to the rental sector in Exeter. And again, with NNUA, Exeter has potentially a larger percentage of rental because of the university and other considerations in Exeter than other communities who might be joining us within the new UA. So their situation is different. And we all know the problems with the local housing revenue income that comes in regard to the extra money that people, the less money people get in Exeter against the cost of rentals. We would like to see the reintroduction, in effect, of a voluntary licensing system we had some years ago that was in trial for a period and then stopped. That any scheme in itself should be self-financing, should involve all private sector properties and the social sector and the council sector. It should be about providing a charter mark of standards so that people who are tenants of that security, that the property is of a standard and worthy of our charter mark. From the landlord, there's that security that we are there as a mediation force if they need it, if there are issues, that is all. And I do welcome the government's stand on the renters bill, which is past 2025, where there is an ombudsman system. So there's no need for us to be an ombudsman, but that initial mediation process is something that is best done in the local area. As I say, we put these proposals forward, looking forward to this authority. But the CA, we think that is one we need to deal with this year. Or else my worry is when the UUA comes, extra CA would go. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I see any speakers? Councillor Moore.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Mitchell for your introduction on this. I just want to agree with you about the importance of the Citizens Advice Bureau. Each quarter, they send us an update on all the important work that they do. And I picked one of them. In the first quarter of this year, so the April, May, June time last year, they helped 1,300 clients. That's just in 3 months. They dealt with 4,844 issues. So people are coming along with more than one issue. They say that this number of people and the number of clients was higher than the last quarter and the last year. And at the same time, the number of quick, straightforward cases had fallen to just 150. So we know that people's situations are getting more complex. Councillor Mitchell talked about the work that they do bringing income in for the council. So they do. In that quarter alone, they secured £1 million worth of income gain for residents. So those are residents who may be struggling with housing costs or with council tax costs. This is a strategic investment. It is clear that the growing volume and the complexity of need is placing an increased pressure on council services, especially in housing support and financial resilience for those who are in the most difficult situations in our city. So I will be supporting this amendment, and I thank you very much for bringing it today.
Now on the speaker circle, Councillor Palmer, and then followed by Councillor Mitchell, who has the right to reply, and then Councillor Bayan. One moment, Councillor Palmer.
Sorry, if not too late, I'd like to make a contribution.
Pardon?
If not too late, I too would like to make a contribution, Lord Mayor.
Please, Councillor Cookson, we'll call you first, and then Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. There is a simple truth we need to face this evening. When public services are cut, demand does not disappear. It moves, and more often than not, it lands on the desks of organisations like Citizens Advice. If we want to do the right thing to our most vulnerable residents, the answer is not just to manage the consequences, it is to campaign and canvass Devon County Council to properly invest in the services people rely on in the first place.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer, then Councillor Mitchell to reply, and then Councillor Bayan.
Thanks. Obviously, I'll let Councillor Mitchell respond to that one. So I want to speak to, as you'd imagine, the final 2 points. So I obviously represent a ward that has an incredibly high concentration of HMOs, and I'm sure you all have, lots of HMOs and rental properties in your own wards as well. I've been talking about this for a really long time because we are one of the only local authorities with such a high concentration of HMOs that doesn't have things like the additional licensing scheme in place. And actually we had a really recent situation where we had residents that come to scrutiny with a petition to extend Article 4, and actually through no fault of the officer's own, they were unable to give accurate data because they didn't have it. They were simply unaware that there were 5 other HMOs within the very immediate vicinity, simply because they're not registered, because they don't have to be at the moment. And the issue that we've got, and actually this ties in again with that wider, voluntary rental scheme, is that we've got residents living in truly appalling housing conditions. And we've got, lots of student HMOs in St James. Many of them are in really, really bad state. Most of the students won't complain about it because they're really worried about not having somewhere to live. But we also have many, many vulnerable residents living in those places as well. So we've got, care leavers, we've got people who have been homeless, we've got people with really serious mental health issues, people struggling with addiction, and they're all living primarily in unregistered, very poorly maintained rental accommodation. Now that's not going to help anyone to move forward in their life. And we see that across St James, and you'll know in your own wards where those properties are. We know where they are in our ward. And it's really difficult to get hold of absent landlords, those really shocking rogue landlords that I'm afraid we all know exist and will do nothing to deal with their properties. Again, residents are generally too frightened or don't know where to go, don't know what to do. So I'm making no political point tonight, but my point is that whatever our political belief, we must think that everyone has the right to live, in somewhere that's decent. It doesn't have to be a mansion, but everybody has the right to live in a decent home. And actually, we can play our part in that locally by just simply having these schemes. And yes, there is a little bit of investment, but fundamentally, they pay for themselves. They're self-sustained, so you can't make a profit from them. But actually, what you can do is use them to maintain and build the service that you're offering, to pay for, officers actually to come and enforce those things and to make things better. So I'm encouraging you this evening, as we said, this might be our last budget together, to actually leave this as a legacy for all of our residents in Exeter to have a safe place to live.
Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you. And thank you for the contribution. I did like your Facebook advert last week on public consultation on libraries in Topsham. Very, very well done. The only problem was all the shelves behind you had big labels saying fiction. So I'd just say next time you stage it, just make sure it's in the non-fiction section, I think, rather than the fiction labels pointing out to everybody as you're putting forward your proposals. I think we need to remember that it was only a few years ago that this authority was granting £75,000 a year to CA. I remember no one saying, my goodness me, we shouldn't do this, it's all on Devon County Council. Devon County Council, I believe, have about £500,000 they put in to CAs across the county. They grant to all CAs. Exeter's contribution is the 73,000. We used to put 75. We now don't make a contribution. We charge them. We charge CA for the use of the offices they've got here. All right, it's a peppercorn rent. I quite agree. But it's a principle to me that you're, on one hand, you're saying we will help them and we'll help you by taking less money off you. This is a desperate service that people in situations so dire that none of us can recognise. And I often get them through my emails and others. I have to point people in the direction of the CA because I don't feel I have the skills and capability to deal with some of the issues that they raise. It is important, and it carries the name Exeter. And if Exeter City Council doesn't care, why should anybody else? Thank you.
Councillor Baird.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Again, it's an emotive subject. It has been to scrutiny, and we have given a fair bit of support in the past, but the past doesn't deal with the present and the future. I totally get that. Scrutiny was quite clear when it came back to us. It asked us to consider the peppercorn rent. We've done exactly what scrutiny has asked us to do. We wrote a letter, the Chief Executive and myself, on the 2nd of February of this year, in response to a request from the CAB. There's been discussions between Jolette Yellen, Stephen Clayton, within the offices to talk about some stuff. And yes, some things could be done, some things they didn't want to do. So that was about choices. So I do understand, and I can't see why that letter of the 2nd of February, I went through the chief executive can't be shared with all the councillors. I see no reason it's to the CAB. I'm surprised they haven't shared it with yourselves. I think that will go in quite a long way to understand what we are doing, what we're prepared to do, and it's quite important. And I understand about going forward, but of course, sadly, we cannot precondition a unitary authority going forward. And I understand, you know, there's a hierarchy of organisations, or is there? I don't know, because I know there's a number of organisations will equally come up and tell me that the social value that they add is important as well. And I think that goes somewhat to what Councillor Cookson said, perhaps advice, I don't know if you've got any influence on the council, whether or not you could get a little bit more out of them, perhaps you could ask them out of their reserves to give £75,000, because I would have thought their reserves are a bit bigger than us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barlick. I now move to the vote. Can I see those who for the amendment? Make sure your hands are right up, please. Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. The amendment is lost. So we now return to the debate on the proposed budget for 2026-27. I'll call on the leader to introduce the proposed budget. He has read the recommendations, and I'll invite him to present the budget and open the debate. I understand Councillor Wright, you've already seconded.
Yes, and I will set my right to speak.
Thank you. Now, right, and so can I just take, before we open the debate, a moment to remind members not to repeat any points that have already been made during the debate. As I indicated in my email following the last council meeting, it doesn't actually assist the flow, and it just becomes very repetitious. So, right, the debate is open. Councillor Bialik. Point of order from Councillor.
I do apologise, Councillor. Before the meeting, we've been given a slip of paper which has an additional recommendation on it. Are we considering that as part of this debate? I'm asking the Lord Mayor. The answer is yes. This, I do not believe, was submitted in accordance with Standing Order 10.7, which requires any group putting an amendment to the budget to put it in to the council within 3 clear days. This hasn't been through the executive, Lord Mayor. It is clearly an amendment from the Labour group. It hasn't been through the due process that we were all informed of by the Health and Democratic Services, and it has not been published on the website. I don't know what status this has, because it hasn't been with the executive either. Would you like me to read out the sentence?
Thank you. The advice I've received is that the standing order has to be submitted in due time to Democratic Services, and it was. And that is to enable the Section 151 officer to consider that. Hang on, I'm being... So if for the benefit of anyone who's listening without the standing orders in front of them, the Standing Order 10.7 reads, any amendment which would, if adopted, have an effect on the Council's revenue or capital finance shall not be considered at the meeting of the Council at which the level of council tax is set for the ensuing financial year, unless prior written notice has been given to the Democratic Services Manager 3 clear working days in advance of such meeting to enable the Chief Executive and or the Chief Finance Officer to report to the Council on the financial implications of such amendment. My advice, the advice I've given is that was complied with.
So is it the case that the finance officer or the chief executive is going to report with respect to the implications of that? Because that's what I understand from that standing order. Thank you.
I understand that Section 151 is having... No. Thank you. The advice is that advice was given to the leader, but as you heard, Dave Hodgson is willing to deal with the matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The proposal is to add an additional budget of £130,000, which will be financed from General Fund Working Balance. As members are aware, the proposed budget leaves General Fund Working Balance approximately 255,000 above the proposed minimum working balance, and therefore this is an acceptable, an acceptable amendment to the budget that would leave the Council's financial position above that as I recommend.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you for the clarification, Lord Mayor. I'd just like to know why it was published on the website in addition to the other papers, and then is this a labour amendment to the budget then, because it hasn't come from the executive? Do we deal with this first before the main item? Thank you.
The understanding, and we dealt with, I did ask about this earlier this evening, is that this is not an amendment, it's additional wording to the existing budget. And therefore it is in order to proceed as we have been doing. Councillor Mitchell.
So, just for clarification, the wording in red on this says with an additional budget added. So is it an additional budget or is it just a reallocation? Because the motion in front of us says additional budget. It's a reallocation from elsewhere. It's not an additional budget.
Councillor Mitchell, I think that the director actually answered that question when he set out his answer just now. I think we're now in danger of the very point I was making earlier. No repetition, please. So, thank you. Leader, I think it's now your turn.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, the balanced budget we present tonight has been achieved through good financial management and a focus on priorities, service efficiencies and sustainable income streams. In setting this budget, we continue to rise to the challenge of maintaining those statutory services we are obliged to deliver and those discretionary services that we choose to deliver here in Exeter. As usual, extensive consultation has been taking place to ensure that our identified priorities match those of our residents and communities, as well as those who visit or work in Exeter. We have listened and taken account of what residents told us and what was important to them. After years of tough and difficult decisions, we are in an enviable position of not having to cut frontline services for the next 2 years, which is the remaining life of this council. This year's budget is of course set against a backdrop of major change. Over the last year, we have built a powerful case for a new unitary authority which includes the City of Exeter at its heart. Our case was developed after extensive consultation and with cross-party support, and I thank all councillors for their collaboration on this. Our proposal, and those from other authorities in Devon, is currently out to public consultation, and I would urge people to have their say by taking part in that online consultation. Local government reorganisation provides a fantastic opportunity for Exeter to continue to thrive in the future, just as it has in the past. The Centre for Cities named Exeter as the fastest growing city in the UK, with significant housing and investment plans for the region. According to the Centre for Cities, Exeter population grew by more than 15% between 2014 and 2024, the highest of any city in the country. The city is also in the top 10 for the number of pupils with GCSEs, Maths and English grades 9 to 4, and the recent increase in housing stock. Lord Mayor, at the end of last year, the Minister wrote to me to ask whether or not postponing the coming May's election would assist in the efficient delivery of local government reorganisation. Having listened to a lengthy and passionate debate at Council, I concluded that a postponement was to assist that process. Having recently seen a huge number of work streams planned and the massive task of preparing for a new unitary council, whatever that may look like, the points I made to the Minister, in my opinion, still remain valid. But the Minister has said that on reflection, the elections should be held in May. And given the number of representations we had and how divisive this issue became, I think now the decision is no bad thing. We have been pledged extra resources from government to prepare for local government reorganisation, and that addresses the concerns around capacity to deliver, and I await that support eagerly. I am glad that this has brought a resolution to the situation, and everyone will get their chance to have their say in May, and I hope we can all now focus on the issues that impacts on our residents. Lord Mayor, it is very important not to lose focus on the work to build a new unitary council for Exeter and the surrounding area. And that remains the big goal that we all want to see. We have a great team of officers in electoral services, led by the Chief Executive, who will work extremely hard to facilitate those elections, as they always have done. And I have no doubt they will deliver. We will be ready, and we will be defending our record of achievement in Exeter. Over the last year, we have continued to deliver excellent services for the residents of our city. If I may, Lord Mayor, I want to briefly highlight some of the achievements before coming to the details of the budget. Our community safety team was recently made permanent and expanded to cover the rest of the city, including parks, neighbourhood shopping areas and cemeteries, with new posts created to improve our visibility in the city. This will further help to drive down antisocial behaviour. I say further drive down because comparing 2024 to 2025, the figures show antisocial behaviour reduced by 21.9%. All recorded crime in the city centre also reduced by 11.6% over the same period. A lot of investment has gone into improving the CCT coverage, with 311 high-definition cameras across the city now linked to our control room. This deters crime and assists the police in finding perpetrators when crime does take place. Additional CCTV cameras are planned in the next financial year. A new safety charter for the city centre is being developed and will be launched this spring to support the city centre community safety. Exeter City Centre was recently given a Purple Flag Award, a mark of excellence for safe, well-managed and a vibrant evening economy. Led by In Exeter, this award recognised the work that has taken place to make Exeter a safe and welcoming place for all. I would like to thank all those organisations that have worked to support this. The safety of women and girls at night and our night charter is currently being reviewed and will be relaunched this summer. A new city centre strategy is being developed and will go out to consultation also in the summer. The results of the 2025 resident survey played an important role in the development of that strategy. It focuses on the appearance of the city centre, safety and accessibility, developing a vibrant economy, building new homes, and how people travel to get there. The strategy is owned and led by the City Council and will be delivered in partnership with businesses and partners. Lord Mayor, we continue to support residents with a high cost of living. We continue to support community groups directly through our grants programme. We continue to support Citizens Advice Exeter. And whilst we cannot provide a transitional grant for 26-27, we remain committed to ensuring that residents have access to effective, high-quality advice and support. We hope the continuation of the peppercorn rent and forthcoming commissioning opportunities under the National Crisis Resilience Fund will assist the organisation in planning for its future. Lord Mayor, housing remains one of our key strategic priorities. The Exeter Plan, our local plan, has been submitted and is now progressing to examination hearings. This is a major milestone that will guide sustainable housing, regeneration, climate action and infrastructure planning for the next 20 years. The second development phase of the Council's housing development at Vaughan Road is set to commence shortly. 16 new apartments will be constructed by June 2027. I recently had the pleasure of meeting the first tenants to move into the Council's 35 new passive house apartments at Vaughan Road. This development is fantastic and changing people's lives. But you don't have to take my word on it. Here's what Tom Hannaford, a former tenant of Wren's house, said after moving with Christine, his wife of 60 years. We were the first ones in, and our new home is really lovely. We're so happy, and there's no way you're going to get better than this. We love it. Lord Mayor, work is also starting in St Thomas, where the 7 more traditional Langs-built council properties are being demolished and replaced with new families' homes. Our programme of retrofitting council properties to cut bills for residents as well as reducing carbon emissions continues. Last year, 152 council properties were retrofitted, bringing the total in the city to 1,250. We're working with partners to create 100 much-needed new social housing units on the land off of Pendragon Road. Exeter remains a vibrant and fast-growing city. Our city development team determined 1,350 planning and related applications, with 52 enforcement cases were closed during 2025. 182 affordable homes were secured through Section 106 agreements, supporting the delivery of much-needed housing across the city. Major progress has been made at Water Lane, where approvals for up to 980 homes, student accommodation, commercial space will help create a new community on a brownfield site. Regeneration is also taking place along the Heavitree Road corridor, with schemes delivering more than 800 student and co-living units, bringing new investment and activity to an important route into the city and supporting local services. Delivery is continuing at Exmouth Junction, including 100% affordable homes in phase 2, with the scheme set to provide around 540 new homes in total. When it comes to HMOs, you need to listen to this. When it comes to HMOs, Executive will look at the current regulations around licensing and consider proposals for what changes may be possible to ensure that this service breaks even in the future. Lord Mayor, Exeter has continued its steady reduction towards net zero, with total citywide greenhouse gas emissions in Exeter for 2023, the year most recent data is available, reduced by an estimated 8% compared to the year previous. Through working in partnership with Sport England, we are soon to begin delivery of the New Town Community Scheme. Works will begin in March to improve cycling and walking infrastructure in the Triangle Car Park and onwards through the neighbourhood, past Belmont Park and Clifton Hill. There has been significant local community engagement and partnership working with a large number of stakeholders to bring this active travel scheme forward. An action plan that focuses on adaptation and resilience will provide Exeter City Council and the new unitary authority that replaces it with a document on how to adapt to the impact of climate on our services, residents and business community. This will include incidents such as flooding, extreme heat, food resilience, land and water infrastructure. At present, the City Council has limited resources to focus on existing citywide net zero activity. If we focus on this adaptation as well, we will require a change of focus. Shifting focus to adaptation would require significant investment, which only the new authority could make. Lord Mayor, the renewal of the historic Royal Clarence is now underway, with new homes and commercial space helping to secure a long-term future for this landmark site. Permission was granted for the new Wanford Community and Learning Centre, supporting improved community and learning and wellbeing facilities for residents in the Wanford area. As well as investing in the future, we also invest in the past. Work on repairing the city wall at City Gate was recently completed at a cost of around £480,000, demonstrating our commitment to protecting the historic fabric of the city. Turning to community asset transfer policy, which was agreed in 2022. I've been approached with suggestions, and there have been concerns over inconsistent handling of requests, transparency around asset disposal. There are areas that can be reviewed and issues that can be resolved under the current policy, many of which may not require formal policy change, but may require resources and time and investment from officers. Therefore, I have asked the Chief Executive to examine the policy and bring forward improvements to a future executive. Lord Mayor, we continue to invest in maintaining and improving car parks in the city. Work is planned to refurbish the Cathedral and Quay car park, enabling all 5 decks to be utilised. The Guildhall car park will also be refurbished to provide a better experience for users. Lord Mayor, I'm also very happy to report that there will be no increases in car park charges planned for the next financial year. We continue to invest heavily in our leisure service to improve health and well-being and quality of life for our residents. Last year, we hosted 7 games in the highly successful Women's World Cup in Exeter. It was a brilliant showcase for the city, and it leaves a legacy of participation in sport, particularly among women and girls. New figures released this week show that it directly boosted the economy in Exeter by more than £30 million. I want to thank all those involved in delivering that. Our leisure service goes from strength to strength. There are 13,646 active Exeter leisure members, a 16% rise on last year. Last year, there were 64,429 casual users, a 20% increase on the previous year. Over the past year, we welcomed more than 9,500 group exercise participants and more than 800,000 swimmers. Our dedicated leisure staff taught more than 2,000 children to swim at St Stephen's Point and Riverside last year. Our GP referral scheme has delivered more than 1,600 sessions to some of our most vulnerable residents in Exeter and surrounding areas. Not quite a white elephant, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, we recently submitted a bid to become a UK City of Culture in 2029. The bid emerged from the months of consultation work carried out with the sector and the city to develop a new city's cultural strategy. Exeter continues to be a UNESCO City of Literature and has 5 national portfolio organisations supported. Our cultural facilities in the city, including the Council's own Royal Albert Memorial Museum and Corn Exchange, continues to thrive. Our annual resident survey recently revealed that 86% of residents have participated in Exeter's cultural scene in the last 12 months. Taking our annual resident survey figures for 2025, show more than 80% said they were satisfied with their local area as a place to live. Other key findings were 50% are satisfied with how the council runs things, the same as last year. 40% agree that the council provides value for money, up on the previous year and above the national average. 52% think that the council keeps them well informed, up on the previous year and above the national average. 60% trust the council a great deal or fair amount, up on the previous year and well above the national average. Satisfaction levels with council services were similar to the previous year, with sport and leisure, parks and green spaces, social housing landlord services, homeless prevention, and museums and visitor attractions all showing an increase. Top reasons why Exeter are important and special: the independent outlets, the key, history and heritage, green spaces and parks. Our dedicated council staff put a lot of effort into making sure the city always looks its best, and is very satisfying to know that it is appreciated by our residents. In 2025, a total of 6,700 residents took part in council consultations, something we are quite proud of. Lord Mayor, our operations team had another busy year. 99.9% of waste was collected successfully. Food waste collections were rolled out to 44,000 homes, with the remaining properties expected to be completed shortly. 629 cases of graffiti were cleaned up, 799 trees were planted, 877 noise complaints were investigated. Our parks and green spaces continue to be maintained at a very high standard. Our rolling programme of improvements to play areas in the city continues, and some major improvements took place last year, including Exwick Station Road. We continue to invest in Exeter's popular water facilities, play facilities. The much-loved paddling pools at Heavitree Pleasure Ground and the St Thomas Splash Park. The St Thomas Pool redevelopment is expected to start this year and will create major improvements at this popular site. Collaboration with partners is leading to major improvements in community sports facilities across the city. This includes Exeter College's work at Flower Pots and Exeter City Community Trust plans for major improvements at King George V. Lord Mayor, we continue to invest in the future. Council recently approved ambitious plans to purchase the new materials reclamation facility and relocate key operational services. The aim is to drive regeneration, improve frontline services, and secure long-term financial and environmental benefits. The creation of a modern waste and operations hub at Exeter Road will be a major boost to the city's recycling operation. Our planned office relocation to Senate Court, modern offices which the council already owns, is a major investment in the city centre. It will enable City Point redevelopment, a 1,000 unit residential mixed use scheme on the council owned site, covering the civic centre and the former bus station sites to come forward. Lord Mayor, thank you for allowing me to highlight some of these things that we do so well here in Exeter, and I'll come on to the details of the budget itself. For the first time in a decade, the government has provided councils with a multi-year settlement, providing stability and certainty over the funding available for the next 3 years. This year, we will receive the same amount of funding as we did in 2025 and 2026. Despite everything we do as a local authority, Exeter continues to set one of the lowest council tax rates across the country. The proposed Band D council tax for 26-27 is £191.31, which means that our share of the council tax is increased by 2.99, or £5.55 a year. That's around 11p per week. In setting the budget tonight, the aggregate requirements of Exeter City Council, Devon County Council, Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, Devon and Cornwall, and the Devon and Somerset Fire Authority will result in the council tax for the City of Exeter 25-26 to be £2,495.36 for a Band D property. An overall increase of £109 or 5.01%. The breakdown of this charge is Devon County Council, £1,891.17p. Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, £303.20. Exeter City Council, £191.31. Devon and Somerset Fire Authority, £109.68p. This equals a total of £2,495.36, of which Exeter City Council's share is 7.6 of that bill. I repeat, our share of the council tax is increasing only by 11 pence per week. I think that's pretty good value, Lord Mayor, for a city which does so much. And as I have highlighted earlier, we continue to ensure that we provide the best services we can for the benefit of everyone here in Exeter. As I stated at the beginning, after a year of tough and difficult decisions, we are in the enviable position of not having to cut services for the remaining life of this council. Lord Mayor, I have covered a lot of things tonight, but not all. An additional recommendation to a fund to create to enable residents and community groups in Exeter to improve their neighbourhoods. The council will be putting £130,000 into Pride in Exeter, the equivalent of £10,000 for every ward in the city, to be spent on tidying, cleaning and improving neighbourhoods. Exeter is already a clean and tidy city, but with more resources there can always be more that can be done, where local communities request it. Residents and community groups will be encouraged to apply for things like fixing broken fences, clearing overgrown spaces, removing excessive weeds, and general small repairs and tidying. The work will be carried out by our dedicated teams at the council in conjunction with community groups where appropriate. The process will be similar to applying for ward grants, and we will work with all ward councillors, community builders and groups on this. This extra resource is in addition to all the usual cleansing operations the council carries out. It is an extra resource for non-essential but important work that improves the quality of life for residents in all of our communities. It is about having pride in our city to ensure that Exeter continues to look the best it can. Lord Mayor, I believe I have addressed many of the issues here previously raised by the parties opposite earlier, and I hope we can now work together to take the city forward. To remind you of the additional recommendation of the Licensing Committee, this was to approve for the period of the 1st of April 26 to 27, March 27, that the fee shall be specified in Appendix B. And the minutes of the meeting will be published and received by the Council on the 3rd of March, next week. But these fees can be found on pages 228 to 230 of the agenda pack. Also, Lord Mayor, the following, to make it clear of the additional wording that I propose is the revenue estimates for 2026-27 with the additional budget added of £130,000 for tidying, cleaning and improving the public realm to be funded from the General Fund working balances. Lord Mayor, we will be able to demonstrate to a new unitary authority the legacy of a well-run council with serious, sensible and well-argued project backed up with strong business cases like the bus station redevelopment, the MRF expansion and the new community hub at Womford. Lord Mayor, we said we would support residents through the cost of living, lead on climate action, build more council houses, protect green spaces, invest in culture and leisure, run a stable, well-run council. Lord Mayor, we have done those things for the last 2 consecutive years. Our legacy will be handing over this authority in a sound way. Under our leadership, Exeter has thrived in the past, and I know it will continue to thrive in the future. Lord Mayor, I am pleased to move. Thank you.
Thank you. Now open for debate. I see who wishes to speak. Just bear with me. Yes. Right, thank you. I have to start Councillor Vizard, followed by Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I thought I'd have a moment more to catch my breath, but straight in. Okay, good. Thank you very much, and thank you, Leader, for such a comprehensive budget, and welcome that and the detail provided. Is it great that Exeter is the fastest growing city in the UK? Reflect on that for a moment. That's incredible. That's not by accident, I would hesitate to say. I think the leadership of the council here over the past decade and more has been absolutely critical to that, as has the work of our previous MP and our current MP for the city. So I think a lot of credit to them and to all the officers who do so much of the work. So thank you. And thank you to Dave and his team for putting together the budget. I know it's an incredibly arduous task, particularly when we're all coming with our various requests and questions. So thank you. One thing that we've not mentioned, I think, and probably worth reflecting on, is the number of retrofitted council homes. I'm probably stepping on my colleagues' Councillor Ashfashion's territory, but I think it's such an important part of our net zero offer. We're up to 1,250, which is incredible. That figure will continue to climb. And in terms of our overall net zero ambitions, the 8% reduction is obviously extremely welcome, that 8% reduction in carbon emissions, that is. But on that, I think we mustn't take our eye off the ball. That requires a great deal more work. There'll be more discussion forthcoming with the reports to executive and scrutiny that will be coming soon. But that is why I think we need to ensure that that focus remains on that carbon reduction programme. Nobody needs to lecture me about where we are with the climate emergency. I absolutely agree that resilience and adaptation and mitigations are vitally important, and there is a huge amount of work going on within the southwest and the overall peninsula through the Climate Impact Group on a big scale in terms of flooding and transport and roads and all sorts of other work that goes on there. So a lot of the work that's needed is at scale and is not within the remit of this council. But I know within the service departments there is work going on this service by service level, and we will continue to look at ways that we can do what we can. But a relatively modest budget is not going to meet the huge demands of that coming forward. So it's all very well paying for a lip service to it. We really need to look at that at a national and at a regional and peninsular level, I think, and we will continue to do that. I want to also just say that the welcome addition to the budget of the funding for the Pride in Exeter, I think, also touches on this, and that might be an area that we can examine in terms of how that might support our bid for the Nature Towns and Cities accreditation. So I will endeavour to take that away and discuss that further with officers. So again, very welcome. From my own ward perspective, and just to reflect on the really good cross-party working with my ward colleagues and with our two local authorities. Yes, we'll say something positive about Devon County Council. The Newtown Community Project Scheme is coming forward. It's taken a while, but we've got it right. It's been with huge amounts of consultation with the public, designed with them, and I think will make a huge impact in terms of safety, use of green space, and active travel without shutting down roads that annoys people so much. So I think that's a really excellent example across party and cross authority working. So very welcome that. And finally, to end on a good news item to draw out. So on page 178 of your budget under the Exeter Community Grants Programme, you'll see that the City Grant Fund line is increasing next year for 26-27, £50,000 we've been awarding to our community grants applicants. It's been an incredibly successful scheme, as my colleagues on the grants panel, and thank you to them. We worked brilliantly and collaboratively together. We had a long meeting on Monday with lots of very, very good discussion. That is going to increase. We're going to put that up to 20% increase to £60,000, and that will, I think, go some way to meet the real demand that we are seeing out there. So this council, again, doing more for its community. So I hope people will reflect and welcome that. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Councillor Holland will be followed by Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. There's much to celebrate in the budget, and I really appreciate the work that's gone into it. Thank you, Dave, and your team. Just a couple of things from me to pick out. Members may remember that my chosen charity was the City Community Trust, and I want to make a couple of comments about King George V playing field. As a younger person, I used to referee there regularly. As a younger person, when my family were young, our youngest son had it as his home ground that he played in, and I'm very familiar. I've looked in some detail at the plans which are coming forth. Members may not be aware that £2 million has been pumped into this project by the FA from the Premier League, and that also has to be celebrated. I've looked at the plans to see how it's going to be landscaped. It will be superb, and it's the sort of place that I would want to go and referee. Perhaps the leader would as well, maybe. And also, I would be pleased for my son to go there. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is that I'm pleased that the car parking charges in this city have been frozen for 26-27. For all sorts of reasons, more people will perhaps consider coming here, spending money, and indirectly it will be good for the community of Exeter and for the hospitality business and all the clubs and pubs in the town. And I thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Leader.
Councillor Wood, followed by Councillor Palmer.
Thank you. Lord Mayor, I will stick within comments to do with my portfolio. There is much to celebrate in this budget, but I'll stick to my home turf. So as portfolio holder for leisure services and healthy living, I'm proud to support this budget because it recognises something fundamental. Leisure is not an optional extra, it is frontline prevention. When we invest in physical activity, we reduce the pressure on the NHS, tackle health inequalities, and improve quality of life across our city. Through our Sports England local delivery pilot, Exeter is recognised nationally as a city that is serious about getting more people active. We are not simply providing facilities, we are doing much more. We are targeting inactivity through our Live and Move project. We're working in neighbourhoods through our through Wellbeing Exeter and its various offices, and narrowing the gap in healthy life expectancy. That is practical action on inequality. The impact is measurable. Since April alone, our leisure facilities have welcomed 1.7 million visitors. That demonstrates demand, relevance, and public confidence in what we provide. There is no white elephant. What we have is a leading national and international leisure centre as our flagship. And it's not alone. The quality of the leisure centres we provide is beyond measure. The way it's welcomed by our residents is clearly proven. Last year alone, more than 2,000 children were taught to swim at St Sybil's Point and Riverside. Alongside that, around 70 adults who've never entered a pool before were also taught to swim. That is confidence felt, safety improved, and opportunity created. We are now delivering 84 GP referral sessions every single week, working directly with the NHS to support residents with cardiac conditions, stroke recovery, and long-term health needs. This is not simply leisure provision, it is integrated healthcare delivery in action. And as the leader has mentioned, our wider leisure team also worked incredibly hard to support the Women's Rugby World Cup in Exeter. They helped promote the tournament, welcomed visitors from across the world, and showcased our city at its best. Teams and supporters engaged in everything from dragon boat racing to Morris dancing in this hall. It was sport at its most powerful, bringing communities together and inspiring participation, particularly among women and girls. Alongside those highlights, this year has required difficult decisions. We have looked carefully at sustainability, usage, and long-term financial resilience. Those choices were not easy, but they were necessary to protect the overall leisure offer for this city. Because of strong management and clear strategic focus, our leisure service is now approaching cost neutrality. This is incredibly important as we look to the unitary authority scenarios. Our own run leisure service brings additional value beyond what we would get contracted out as other councils do. If we can reach cost neutrality within our service, we are demonstrating not only does it have additionality, but it is sustainable and good value for money. So at a time when many councils are significantly cutting provision or increasing subsidy, Exeter is demonstrating that high quality public leisure can be financially sustainable. And that success is built on people. I don't get the chance very often. This is one of them. So I would like to thank our managers and frontline teams, from swimming teachers and lifeguards to instructors and reception staff. They make our centres warm and welcoming places. They create inclusive environments where residents feel supported, whether they are taking their first steps towards better health or maintaining lifelong habits. We continue to run modern, energy-efficient facilities aligned with our climate ambitions. We are investing in playing pitches, strengthening partnerships with Exeter College and Exeter City Community Trust, and developing a sports strategy that matches the growth of our city. Wellbeing Exeter also shows the power of neighbourhood-based prevention, tackling isolation and supporting mental health through joined-up working. This budget reflects realism and ambition in equal measure. It protects a service we can rightly be proud of and helps us move towards a healthier Exeter. My ambition remains clear, that every resident, regardless of age or background, has the opportunity to live an active and healthy life in welcoming, sustainable facilities. Lord Mayor, I am proud to support this budget.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer, followed by Councillor Harding.
Thank you. So I've had a lot of spin from the other side this evening, and I want to actually ask genuinely, what is it that you feel that you've done for St James residents? Because actually, you know, those are the residents that I hear from the most in terms of the issues that they face on a day-to-day basis. So just some examples this year alone. So there's the missing still money for the St James Trust that nobody will answer the question to, despite it being asked in scrutiny, despite officers being asked, nobody will answer the question of where that money's gone. Councillor Mitchell and I brought the Sidwell Street scrutiny as a direct result of so many comments from residents in St James. And again, that was voted down. You know, just that was our residents directly giving you feedback about their experience of living close to and having to use Sidwell Street. Residents are also now having to go and fight their case in the examinations on the local plan because you took away community balance. It is probably fundamentally the most important thing to anyone that lives in St James. They are now having to go and fight their case with Councillor Mitchell because we didn't listen to them and you didn't give us the opportunity to properly scrutinise that plan. Councillor Moore and I are having to go and talk in that same session about co-living, because again, we keep talking about, oh, co-living. The policy is completely inadequate. It's not good enough. You talk about, you know, I'm relieved, I'm grateful to hear that you're going to talk in the executive about HMOs. And it's interesting, isn't it, we talk about this great housing growth, and yet you cannot, if you properly supported it, if you were really committed to it, you would have voted in favour of it this evening. And you talk about the growth in this city, that's great. But you've refused to protect renters, where I would imagine quite a lot of that housing growth is going to need to come from, particularly with, you know, university students. If we want to encourage young professionals to stay in the city, most of them are going to be renters for the first few years. So my residents don't want to hear spin. They want to hear you listening to ward councillors. You know, the pride and extra things, you know, fascinating, it's great. But what my residents aren't going to want is piecemeal support. Walk with me down any street, you know, when it's the end of term time. It is not pleasant. It's not a nice place to be for our residents. Many of them email every single week to report, you know, issues with bins, with rubbish, with broken glass in the street. So we're not asking for a miracle. We're asking for you to do something right for them. So they don't want to hear spin about, you know, how many people go swimming and, you know, all of these other things that impact other areas of the city. I think they actually just want some really quite basic things in this budget. And two of those really basic things are the things that we brought here tonight to support renters and to support, you know, a greater scrutiny of HMOs.
Thank you. Councillor Harding, followed by Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. We had an impressive list of achievements by the City Council from our leaders now, but if I was to pick out one thing from that list, it would be the fact that we are still building council houses here in Exeter. If there's anything that a local authority can do for its residents, it's to build and make sure they've got a decent home. And building council houses does that. But not are we only building council houses, we're building to the highest quality and a passive house standard, which saves residents money with their heating bills and it's actually transforming lives. So that's something I think we can be really proud of that we're doing that. My colleague spoke about the retrofitting, so I won't go into that, but that was another really positive thing. But the fact we've built 35 passive house, council houses at Vaughan Road already, that we're building another 16 and then 7 in St Thomas. These are fantastic achievements. And the simple fact is that other councils run by other parties don't do this. So the fact that we are doing it here in Exeter makes me really proud. And it's something that I shall be shouting about from the insulated rooftops. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Williams, followed by Councillor Fold.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I feel like I need to sort of comment on Councillor Palmer's. Thank you. Anyone would think she's the only one that lives in that ward. I've lived in that ward for 40 years. So I live right in the middle of HMO student land. So I know exactly what's going on, and I know exactly what the council does and continues to do for the residents of that ward. I know that we work with the university. So, you know, there are so many things. I'm not going to go into the details, but, you know, it's like, well, teaching grandmothers is cupcakes, isn't it? It's absolutely ridiculous. So anyway, I'm going to move on and concentrate on the budget speech. So we've had comment about the community safety team extending to cover parts and cemeteries. I think that is very, very welcome, a great start. I'm also going back to 2 weeks ago when I was absolutely thrilled, pleased that we had a unanimous support for the MRF refurb and the purchase of a new building. That is absolutely fantastic. We're about to do full food rollout in Exeter, but we're not going to stop there because we actually recognise that one of the issues, and you may have noticed it when you walk around Exeter, you see the bins that not every resident is participating, they're not taking up that opportunity. And so we are going to be participating in a project, a pilot project that's been trialled by Teambridge, and this is an example of many local authorities in Devon working together, trying a pilot in one authority and then moving it forward to extending it to others. And so we are going to be piloting initiatives to encourage greater participation in food waste. And that's really good news because what it means is not only are we going to be increasing our recycling rates because we've got food waste rollout across the city, we'll also be increasing it because we'll have greater participation. So there's a lot of work to do, but rest assured we are doing it. The other thing I wanted to commend was the additional £130,000 for the public realm. I think we're all used to working closely in partnership with community builders. And one of the things I, as a ward councillor, found is we're trying to sort of find parcels of money to take forward initiatives. So the ward grants are really, really valuable, fantastic, as are the small city grants, for having this additional funding. So, for example, in my ward, we've already identified with the community builder and the community where they would like to put a mural on a wall, which happens to be in one of our play areas. The Parks and Green Spaces team said, yeah, that's fine, that's our wall. We just need some money to be able to put that forward. So that's exactly the sort of thing that we can all do with all our communities. So great, great, 130,000, that's absolutely fantastic. We're also doing quite a lot in terms of asset transfer. Certainly, Liz Pole, and again, our community builder has been working hard to support Sylvania Huts. A community transfer is very, very challenging, but it's progressing. And I know also Liz and I have been working really hard to support the Catherine's Priory in extending their lease. And again, council officers have been very supportive in moving that forward. My final comment is about the citizens' advice. I noticed that Devon had reduced their funding by £6,000 per annum. So I wondered how our county councillors there, this was in a letter from Richard Wilmot, the chair, to Phil Bialik. So, yeah, shame that they reduced their by 6,000. But the other thing, I had an exchange with Richard Wilmot, because at the bottom of his email, he had this link to crowdfunding. So I thought, right, well, I'm going to make a personal donation. So I tried, and the link took me nowhere. So I wrote to Richard and said, you know, this is a bit unfortunate, you're doing crowdfunding, the link doesn't work. And he said, well, yes, we've sorry we changed it and I haven't actually got the right link in my email. So he then sent me a link to their new crowdfunding page. And unfortunately, you have to give so much personal information, not just your email, not just your address, but you have to give your date of birth. And I said, enough's enough, I'm not going to do that. So I think that the CAB does perhaps need to sharpen its act in terms of improving its crowdfunding. So thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Fall, followed by Councillor Patrick.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Three brief observations. Firstly, like Duncan, I'd like to celebrate some of the excellence that I've seen within my own portfolio for arts and culture. The Round, the Phoenix and the Northcote have all reached not just larger but wider audiences in the last year or so. We've been delighted to see. And as you pointed out, the city is now applying for that City of Culture. Secondly, I'd like to concur with Peter, reference the King George V Bayfield. In another part of my life, I was chairman of the Exeter Strollers walking football team. I've got 110 members between the ages of 50 and 80 who are, dying to, but they're looking forward to. They're looking forward to getting out there and struggling their stuff. I've got four member clubs that will get first dibs there. And I think mostly, as a Labour Party member, I'm proud to be supporting a socialist budget. A socialist budget because what we're doing is we're preserving jobs and services for the remaining lifetime of this culture, of this council, not culture. That I am proud of. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Patrick, followed by Councillor Fulham.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just want to speak to some of the comments raised by the leader on the recent planning approvals, and also just sort of come back on some of the conversations that we've been having about HMOs. I understand there's concerns about HMOs for residents. You know, the residents themselves, the quality of HMOs can be poor, and also HMOs can certainly put pressure on local residents. But I would also like to remind all councillors that students and the university are really important to the city, to our economy, to our diversity, to our culture, just our way of life. We welcome students, and we don't want any students watching this to feel unwelcome. I think that's important to remember. Which is why I personally welcome the recent approvals of high quality, well-equipped, warm, safe student accommodation, that purpose-built student accommodation, built on those brownfield sites in exactly the right places. And also co-living, those co-living developments as well. They do help alleviate the pressure on family homes and reduce the demand for HMOs. So I think that is important. And it's important to remember as well that all of these kind of decisions and these sort of planning approvals and these, and HMOs, all those decisions are going to be made an awful lot easier in the future when our local plan, which is we've put an awful lot of work in, we've had an awful lot of consultation time, comes to a successful conclusion. So we can have that strategic development. Just on a separate note as well, I just want to mention something about the Quay. So the Quay is one of Exeter's most loved areas. I adore the Quay. And as highlighted in our resident survey, other people do too. And so I was really pleased to hear about the news to the improvements in the car park. A resident of mine has been messaging me about this constantly for the last year. It's going to help more people get to the Quay who can't get there on public transport, but we're walking or cycling like I'm lucky enough to be able to do. They can access the lovely riverside walks and the shops and the sports facilities. But also, and this is really important to remember, those independent shops, the bars and restaurants, which are all going to benefit from the increase in income through that custom. So I really welcome that decision. Thank you.
Councillor Fulham. I see no other hands, so there'll be Councillor. I do wish you'd get your hands up. I haven't forgotten you, Fulham. Right, we've got Councillor Reid. You all leave it to the last minute. If you were at an auction, you'd miss out on vital auction. Right. Councillor Fulham, followed by Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This is an interesting budget. I must say that there were positive things in there. I've asked for things for a long time, and some things have been moving in the right direction, so I do welcome that. I'd like to specifically make reference to the Lounge Housing in St Thomas. It's been many, many years they're coming, and we've harping away about it. I'm sure your Labour colleagues in the board have also been doing that. So we are very much looking forward to seeing the builders on site, so that's a positive thing to include. I think the grants increased, 20% increase, well, it's a 20% increase, let's not denigrate it, is a move in the right direction because our voluntary groups in the city contribute way more than the investment that we put into them, for sure. The public realm improvements, it's vital. I think this is one thing that most of us as ward councillors come across. We want to see tangible actions on the streets in terms of, it might be cosmetic, but it's actually materially very important to the tone of the city. So it's encouraging to see that last minute amendment brought in under different arrangements. The rest of us have put amendments in, but there we have it. And also the community safety. The community patrol that we lost a number of years ago was a vital resource, and I think we've missed it terribly actually, because the police are always going to have their priorities, especially on an evening, and we'll be dealing with issues in the wards. I think I'm not putting too much expectation on this prototype community safety group. Good luck to the officers, but I think it's a good resource, positive resource to bring back in. Now, I'm just not up here and waxing lyrical about the administration all the way through my brief talk. I have to. I have to say, the CAB investment is vital. We need to bridge the gap between now and the new authority to make sure it's fit for purpose and we don't lose the bones as well as the meat of the bones of that structure, because I think it needs to regrow. I think some of the administration problems that were referred to over there might be a function of stripping the management down to the bare bones. Means those sort of things don't happen that perhaps should be happening. So I think it's disappointing that hasn't happened. Hopefully in the future it will come back in. A brief reference to household support fund was mentioned in terms of supporting CAB. That's a direct fund to residents to deal with issues. It's not designed to be given to structures to help them to access that. We've changed the nature of it. It's Devon County Council administered. The key point I think we make here is the point was made about the legacy. The last decade of council, I think we need to bear in mind that starting from today, I mean, this is progress. But looking over the period of a decade, I would point out to a number of strategic missteps which have undermined our capacity in the city and reduced our potential to positively impact in the city. And I'll just quickly run through St Syllable's point overspending, Exeter City Living, museum overspending many years ago, City Point development which didn't come to fruition. Senate Court is coming on stream. I think that's a misstep, and I hope it doesn't turn out the way I've seen previous projects turn out. And in that seat over there, Councillor Edwards in 2023, when I joined the council, was proud to announce that Exeter was a debt-free authority. This year, we're paying £3 million in debt interest and capital repayments. In 2024-25, 26-27, it's going to be £4.3 million of capital interest and debt repayments. The sustainability of St Syllable's point out on a revenue basis would be welcome, but I doubt it includes the capital investment that we had in the first place. That's a long-term drag on the city as a whole. So I would argue that those missteps have cost the city dearly and are embedded in our system. I do welcome the progress we're making from this point, but I think that needs to be the context in which we consider this budget, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Reid and then Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you. Yeah, so, my notes just disappeared. That's interesting. I literally had them there and then they've gone. Hang on 1 second. I was just writing them and then they literally disappeared. Where have they gone? Well, it might have to be. Oh, okay. It's the most wonderful budget. Do you like that one? Can I have a minute, Lord Mayor? Is that all right? They literally just disappeared from my screen.
Well, we'll have Councillor Moore followed by Councillor Reid.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you for outlining the budget, and I'm very much in agreement, and I think I've said this every year, and I'm going to say it again. The council's passive house council houses are brilliant, and the retrofit work is really to be commended, and that is something to be truly proud of as a city. And I do want to thank our officers for all their hard work, because your speech reflects the commitment of our staff teams to what, and the dedication to what they do. I am concerned, though, that this budget sets out a continuation of doing to communities rather than working with. I think there is more that we can do to actually empower and enable our communities to be the partners that they can be and should be in the way that other organisations in the city are regarded. In terms of climate action, we have to work strategically, of course we do. However, we need to embed that within our communities to help people to understand and take action locally. That has to marry up with the system change that we need to create. In relation to community asset transfer, I welcome the comments that you've made, but unless we put something into action, which will require money, then nothing will happen. And so we've been in St David's, a request has been put in this week for Field Hut, which has been derelict, so I've been working with the community on that for many years, and so I do expect that to progress properly, whereas others in my ward haven't. I think there is a really important opportunity that we can create as a council, a legacy with our communities to invest by working with them. Communities can be very successful and have long-term lasting impact with that in terms of community asset transfer. And I am quite disappointed, I must say, Councillor Bannick. You asked for more detail about community asset transfer. I've sent you that, I've written a report, I've commented on examples, and then to say that there is a lack of detail is rather disappointing. I hope that working on to progress this issue can be a little bit more productive. I also need to draw members' attention to Appendix 3. I really do welcome the fact the government has given a multi-year settlement. That's security that councils need. But Appendix 3 does also set out £1.6 million worth of cuts and income generation and £400,000 for next year. And much of that income generation actually relies, some of it on markets, which we've been looking to expand and could generate more income, but also it relies on using our parks and gardens as spaces to rent out, as we see with the Winter Wonderland, that trashes Northern Hay Gardens every year, creates a nice big income, but then we have to reinstate it every year. We want long-term investment in our parks and gardens. So there are significant challenges in terms of generating that income, as well as the cuts that those will present. I am quite intrigued by the cleaning scheme, because when I read it on the face of it, without the detail, it sounds quite a good idea. However, I am rather worried now, hearing this, it's going to become bogged down with bureaucracy if groups have to apply for funding and grants and fill in forms, and it has to be led by a community group. We here as councillors, well, this is the detail that I'm looking for. You know, it's fine you shaking your head, but you know, councillors, we work with our communities, we've identified this, that and the other, we need to have funding and done. If it's going to be very complicated and left with communities being required to contribute in some way, then it's not going to be creating the outcomes that you want. So we need to have clarity about that. And each year I've listened to the speech, and over the years we have seen a lot change in Exeter. We need to be highly aware that inequality, the gap is growing in our city, and that is a deep concern. I've raised it from time to time because this really relates to the heart of what we do. This is why citizens' advice has been a really important part of our debate, and I'm disappointed that the portfolio holder would make personal criticism for someone who's not here to answer for themselves. So I would really urge the public to look for the citizens' advice crowdfunder and support it. We have talked over the years about the lack of funding in local government, and like Councillor Bannick, I was hopeful when Labour came in that we would get more money for local government, because Local government, it feels like the government knows the price of everything and the value of nothing when it comes to local councils. And you didn't mention it this year in your speech. I was very disappointed because I looked up some facts. So each year you talk about core spending power and how much money the government, in terms of the government gives us and how much we have. And the LGA has been talking about this and saying core spending power of councils, the money that we have, will rise by 5.7%. But actually, if we compare that figure, the grants that we get, it's actually gone down by 16.7% compared to what we had in 2010. So actually, we need to be making the case to government that it must invest in our councils. We've got no more money than we had in 2025 or 26. You said that yourself. And some of that gap was being made up by the extended producer responsibility grant. So we're not actually getting any more money for the vital services that our communities need. So hopefully we can be united on that and sending a very clear message to say, please invest in our communities. Thank you.
Indeed.
Could I clarify a point for the leader based on what something about the figures?
Sorry, Councillor Rees, are you making a point of order?
No, I just.
Councillor Rees, you have two options: as point of clarification, or you're putting your hand up to be added to the list of speakers.
Point of clarification.
What we will do is, I understand, and I have been watching the clock, Councillor Fuller, because we normally have a break about 8 o'clock. I'd hope to get all the speakers in, but I think we will deal with Councillor Rees' point of clarification, and that we will have a 10-minute break, but it will be prompt 10-minute break. Councillor Rees.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Leader, I was just going to clarify the business about the lack of clarity. A comment I saw where you were looking a bit confused about when Councillor Moore said that you didn't have the detail. When customer focus...
Councillor Rees, sorry to interrupt, but if anyone wants to make a point of clarification, it has got to be on something that they themselves have said, not on something that somebody else has said.
Do you apologise?
That's all right. Right.
I'll be added to the list then.
Right. In that circumstance, we will now have 10 minutes adjournment.
Those who are able, please have standard work below their excellence.
Reid, has your computer recovered its composure? We'll call you next, and then Councillor Dawson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. No, but obviously I've rewritten it, so that's all right. It's all in the brain. Right, so lots to welcome in this budget, which is great. I totally agree with you, Rob. Council houses, it's great. Love that. Interesting to hear from you, Bob, it's a socialist budget. Don't know if everybody in high command of Labour would be keen on that, but there we go. Good to know. Yes, you would. Absolutely. So I wasn't trying to give a lecture. I was trying to make a point about the immediacy and the urgency of the need for funding climate adaptation. And I do really take your point, Matt, that it needs to be done at scale, but that is all too often an excuse for kicking the adaptation plan down the road, and that has happened again and again, and we see that again and again. But actually, there's loads that can be done, resilience-wise and adaptation-wise, that starts locally and it can be done locally by working really with local communities, by local government, and not doing things at scale. Things like planting trees in the city centre to cool down a city centre. This is really going to become increasingly important with overly hot summers and can absolutely be done by this council, for example, on the site of a former bus station. There you go, just a little idea where you might want to put some trees. You can put green roofs on public buildings, ones that we own. Senate Court, that'd be a fantastic place to put a green roof on. They absorb rainwater. You know, it's not just pretty. It's not just Green Party is not just green because we like the colour. It's because it's really, really important to have nature-based solutions around us all the time, and it's something that we can absolutely be doing locally. We can absolutely be doing it with small amounts of money can really make a big difference. And some of these adaptation measures are being done currently by communities on their own. So some of you may or may not know, just upstream, just up in Tiverton, there's a group of residents who have prevented flooding happening there by creating scrapes on fields which absorb rainwater and prevent it flooding the X in that vicinity. And that's absolutely something. Those sorts of things are things that we can do locally to prevent flooding. We've got lots of instances of flooding from urban runoff that happens in Exeter, happens again and again, and we get called out to help residents who are having those problems. And these sorts of locally put in place measures can absolutely prevent that. So given that we know what communities are already doing on their own, imagine how much more could be done if the council would lead on this. And if the council created a legacy on this to pass down to when we are a bigger authority, to not say to the bigger authority, oh, you should probably do something about this. Say, hey, it's all right, we've got it started, we've got it going, we're working with communities and we're building adaptation and resilience plans that are really going to be effective. So I think it's really disappointing that we didn't have support for our amendments, because this did come through scrutiny process, as we know, into which all councillors for all political parties were invited to feed into that. And it's disappointing to hear about lack of detail, because from scrutiny, I think Councillor Rees can speak on that, because we were very clearly guided about how we should do that process, and the detail was worked out later, and as was the correct process. So we really are wanting, and I hope everybody here in this chamber is wanting to do politics differently, so that we can actually address the problems, the growing problems that the country and the world is facing, and to deal with these wicked problems that we are increasingly seeing, and these existential threats. We really, thank you, sorry. Oh, sorry, excuse me to sing song. We really need to be collaborating. So it is a shame that you couldn't support amendments that were really fully costed and worked through, and I think really would have added to this budget. So that collaboration is something that we really could have had tonight. That collaboration is going to be something that's increasingly important in this era of wicked problems, and it's something that's going to be increasingly important to this council after May. But luckily, as we've heard, as all of us here have heard from Dave, our fabulous finance officer, we know that the budget is a living, breathing thing. It doesn't get voted in tonight and stop. We know that. We know that it's something that has to adapt and change through the year. So I hope, as time goes on, that some of the things that we have mentioned here, and it's welcome that community assets are going to be looked at, and it's welcome that HMOs are going to be looked at, but we can actually make decisions on those. And we can actually use small amounts of money to fund local things like community adaptation and resilience that would really, really make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cookson and then Councillor Rees.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to all our hard-working staff. Some councils talk green, but end up in the red. This budget shows that you can cut carbon without cutting services. In respect to the Lord Mayor, I will not repeat any points already raised. Though if councillors want evidence of improvement under this administration, and a sign of the kind of legacy we should leave, they should note that the clock in the council chamber works. Green, not in the red, and with the clocks working. This is the right legacy we should leave to the next authority.
Thank you. Councillor Rees and then Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My brief point was to clarify about the details and figures, because so I just want to explain in our customer-focused scrutiny committee meeting, when we voted on the recommendations to bring to yourselves, we were advised not to put figures on and details on it at that point. And so because we did discuss that, and so I just wanted to very briefly explain why you have those sort of 4 recommendations with no figures attached. And so we were advised at the time, don't put figures there now, but actually wait and actually see what the executive thinks and what they think is appropriate. And personally, I would always much rather work in collaboration, as you know, and sit down together and think about what is realistic, where does it dovetail and time with what's already in your plans, and what makes sense. And so that's, however it was then, I think Councillor Moore was asked to flesh something out, which she did. So I just wanted to clarify that that was we were guided that way in our customer focused scrutiny meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wright, and then I will be inviting the leader, Councillor Barlett, to reply to the debate.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and please stop me if I do repeat. I'm happy for you to do that. So I'll try not to. Collaboration, that word has been used, absolutely. We seek collaboration, and when we have it, we work better collectively as a council, and when politics get in the way of that, which, let's be realistic, they will do, and particularly coming up for any local elections, that always happens. We all want to be able to make a point that we hope will get indefinitely. Very rarely they do, only the bad ones, but understand all of that. But I do want to talk about picking up on what Councillor Rees said about collaboration within my portfolio work. First of all, when we're talking about climate adaptation, couldn't disagree with that. We're all of a mind to that, and you can see that with the work we've done, which our portfolio holder is able to elaborate on and has done. But I just want to point out to the ward council, city centre ward councillors that have been meeting with me in a really positive forum now to talk about the city centre strategy. And I did tell you it's in draft form and it's coming out of consultation soon, but I want you to see that draft form before we go further. I can't share it with you because the only draft form I've got has still got all the comments and everything on. I've asked Victoria for it, but I do want to pull something out of that I hope will reassure you about the city centre and the greening of it. And one of the amendments that you put forward. So bearing in mind this is draft and the wording might change, but the city centre's green infrastructure, including parks, gardens and trees, will form an important and explicit part of the city's offer, serving the triple purpose of making the city centre more attractive, benefiting nature and improving climate resilience. So there will be action plans coming from that, exactly how we're going to do that. And one of the proposed actions, which will be going to consultation, but will be to green up the city centre. Planting more trees isn't always the exact answer, because the more trees we plant at the moment, the more we're struggling with Devon County Council to actually trim them back and to clear the drains when the leaves drop and to actually maintain them properly. But going into a unitary, we want to get something that's set down that would actually do that. But we're certainly wanting to talk about putting in many more planters, and the community in the city centre should be heavily involved with that. And also now with this extra money that's coming for wards, city centre wards, would be heavily involved with that as well. So I just want to know that it's up and coming. As soon as I can share that draft with you without all the crossings out, I would do. Also part of that on a measure of success is achieve and maintain nature towns and cities accreditation. So that is already something that is going to be an aim. So having that in amendment with having a certain amount of money attached to it was why we couldn't accept that amendment. Or I couldn't vote on that amendment because we don't say let's put 50,000 into doing that. This is actually going to be part of the city centre strategy, which will be budgeted for anyway. So I hope that helps on that. And I want to thank the ward councillors as well for the forum that we just started up, and I think I should have done that a bit sooner. So thank you for bringing that forward, and it's very collaborative, and I hope we'll continue to. Community safety. So community safety in general, there's been cross-party support every time we've brought something forward with a budget request. Support for, going back a few years now, originally to increase the staffing of the CCTV control room. That, as far as I remember, got unanimous support, and because of that, that enabled then more staffing to be able to apply for funds for more infrastructure. And now we're in a really great place with that, and our staff are receiving awards for the work that they're doing, and that is really helping city centre, but it's now starting to increase outside of the city centre, and that was the plan. So that's all part of the budget. So I really hope that we can have cross-party support for the budget tonight, because there's so much in there that you say that you want, that I know that you want, that you agree with. And I would really hate us to be in that position that we always get into every year, that you bring forward amendments, we don't accept them, you don't then vote on our budget. And I think we need to be past that. We really need to be in this together and really put our money where our mouth is, put our vote where our mouth is, to actually try and be collaborative in a much bigger way. Community safety team, again, is in there, and you all voted for that unanimously to increase the community safety team, and we've heard already from the actual statistics about the impact that's having in the city centre, bringing down ASB, bringing down crime rates, and that will now be increased to cover all aspects of the city. It's still not a massive team, so they're not going to be in everybody's ward all the time, but that is something really positive, and you were all behind that. So again, I'd ask you to think about being behind the budget tonight. Community Safety Charter, the SWAN Charter, those are coming forward again, and I know that's something that everybody is for. That's no budget request on that, so I've sneaked that in cheekily. And the customer focus recommendations, I can't really see that we've gone against any of that. Recommendation 1, peppercorn rent for CAB, but yes, we've done that. More resource for parks and green spaces, yes, with this new additional budget request, that's exactly what is going to happen, because that will give more resource for our team to be able to make improvements in the ward. So yes, it might be about getting skips to clear rubbish, but it could also be about improving parks or greening places up that are outside of the parks. Support strengthened for community asset transfer is what was asked for. So I do thank you for that meeting that you had with me the other day when the leader was cleared away to hear that the elections were back on. So we had a nice meeting over a cup of tea. Things have been happening, but I know the leader has assured me that that is going to be looked at, as he said. There's stuff that, for me, it's the process, I think, on that, because we already have a policy. From what you were saying, Diana, sometimes that policy doesn't, there isn't a clear process, which is what you were really asking for to be set out. So I agree that that's what we're hoping for, and that is what's going to come forward with what the leader has promised there. And the climate resilience action plan, I just said a little bit about that through the city centre strategy. So I would actually implore you, please, to be collaborative now. We're trying to be collaborative. We are collaborative, but I really feel that we're in a much different place. This feels so different from how it did last year. I think the time has gone for us to be all just thinking about how we're grandstanding, not even thinking about votes in May. Let's put that aside. Is this a good budget? I think so. And I could just leave you with, what have you done for me lately? Whoa, 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 whoa. This budget does everything. I had to do that because of it.
Councillor Bayer.
Sorry. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, I have a remark later to make. First of all, just to respond, because I think it is a duty on me to respond, to thank Councillor Bizarre for the work he's doing, because when we looked at that proposal with regard to the adaptation, I did talk to my portfolio owner, and I know they've had discussions, and we looked at the possibilities of it. And I mentioned it in my speech. If we can do things, we'd like to do things. And I'll come straight while I'm dealing with that, because a couple of people have mentioned it. I'll come straight into Councillor Reeves. We talked about fields, and I get it, by the way, because where I live, a lot of runoff and everything else like that. So hopefully the chief exec don't say to me the next day, what have you committed yourself to? What I'm going to do is I'm going to write to the leader of the Devon County Council. And I'm going to say, I would like to meet with you, with the leaders of the other parties in Exeter, to talk about it, because I know you have a responsibility in this end. So we'll all go together in a sensible way, because you may think I don't get it. I do get it, okay? Many of us who are lucky to have a bit of a lawn, we haven't been out on it, and, things have been happening. Those of us who've got a bit of a garden, we all understand it. So I would try to facilitate that meeting where hopefully we would go as one, because I really do think the things that we're asking to do, Lord Mayor, on that area is far beyond what this council is doing, or beyond the resource of what we've got and what we will be expected to do one way or another as the LGR progresses. And I don't use LGR as an excuse to do nothing on everything. I really do, and I hope we can have a good chat before we go, and perhaps you can help me to construct that letter to Julian Brazil to say, I'd like all the leaders to come and meet you because we've got a concern in the city, and I think that would be a way of trying to move on that. And like many of the portfolio owners who are speaking tonight, Councillor Word, Councillor Vizard, who were right, Councillor Wright a few moments ago, Councillor Patrick, Councillor Paul, portfolio owners, I think they've demonstrated to us all their understanding of their portfolios and what they are intending to do and what they're trying to do. And that is about building a leadership team, which I like to think it is, that I've got a council as an executive, in knowing their briefs, getting into it and dealing with it. They feed me the information, which is there to do, and I think that's very, very important. So I think they're doing a good job, and so I've been doing appraisals today, and so I've just done an appraisal of the executive here in this chamber. On the question, Councillor Holland, and I'm glad there's lots of things in here to celebrate. And as I said to you at the start, listen to what I'm saying. I thought you would. like that. But the reality of it is we only just put up the car park charges a few months ago. Right? So it looks good in a soundbite. So I'll sort of take away my own soundbite now. We just put them up 7%. That was an overall. That was because we hadn't done anything for the year before as well. When you then take it over perhaps a 3 to 4 year period, I don't think they've exceeded too much. And so we're trying to work with business as well. And many of us think, you know, we are an old medieval city and it is difficult. People need their cars to get around. And until we can do those fundamental things about getting decent public transport in the way, and this is far beyond the city council, decent public transport which is reliable, turns up, energy efficient, just as Stagecoach are putting a lot of electric buses in, until we can say there is an alternative. Leave your car at home, for goodness sake. And then David talked to us about the problem that that will bring us financially because the car parks are all empty. So Councillor Wood really showed a lot of passion with regard to his portfolio, and I know he's doing a good job. That's not an easy thing, you know. We bought the service in-house. I can't remember off the top of my head who contracted it out 10 or 12 years ago, and but they did. And we bought it back in-house in 2019. Right decision what we made at that time. And I think it is a flagship, and it is well received around. Councillor Palmer, I listen to you, and I can sense the frustration. Let me put it like that. The frustration you have for and how you choose to represent your residents. And you had one of your residents here in the room actually explain. And my view is that this budget was not dealing about student accommodation. It was not talking about HMOs in that way. I think I made reference to what I would do with HMO. If you read your amendment, and then when my budget speech is attached, you will see I've almost replicated what you've asked me to do. I've done it. And I've batted it to the Chief Executive in SMB. Because what you need to do is I've got to sprinkle a little bit of reality of what I would like to do on realism. And that's what the directors do. That's why we have them. I tell them what I would like us to do, what our political agenda is, and sometimes there's some hard conversations, well, don't work like that, Phil, or this, that, and the other, and then you've got to start, and you've got to do the rest, and that's what we were doing. I'm not against that idea. I'm not against that idea. Councillor Moore, I'm not against asset transfer. I'm not against it. I'm just saying we haven't got that money to put, and there's no plan on how. So what I've said is I've read the policy, I've looked through the policy, I read the document you sent me. I had a member of your team, the support team, to go through it with me, and to give me a brief on some of the areas, and that's what they've done. So hopefully that demonstrates. I just haven't said, oh, this is another green proposal about it in a way. I'm looking at it. I've spoken to Laura, and was it who said, Macmillan, was it said events, and that's what happened on that Monday afternoon. But I did handle it well, didn't I? Because, oh, really good. You should have been in the room after they all left. And yeah. And just to say, my reference was, hopefully, my reference to some people was, I spent many a year driving a bus. This is the first time I've been thrown under it. But there you are. That was what I said. What I said to a few people. I think Councillor Williams. This demonstrated again, Lord Mayor, her passion in her portfolio, what they're doing on recycling, the MRF, and all what we're doing. And I'm very pleased. And you won't mind me saying this when I say it, but what she will do, she'll come and meet you, and she sees a bit of paper, she picks it up wherever she is. And she sort of, and I know the Chief Executive said, we've seen her out and about with her thing, picking up stuff. Now, that's pretty committed, pretty good commitment. And many of us do all those things in our own litter picks and everything else in our own wards. And it's great what we're doing. Which moves me on about what we're trying to do with that fund and trying to set up. And I said, £130,000 just happens to equate to 10,000, but that's not necessarily 10,000. Not looking to set up a big deal of bureaucracy, but it's got to be transparent, all right? There's got to be a reason to get there. And this is another job, in addition to getting this unitary status, the Chief Executive and her SMB was saying, without making it long-winded, it's got to be open and transparent. It's about a quick way how we can do these things. So that's a great idea in Mincing Lake and Whitton about doing that. So we're not going to go out and be confident, but we need to know. So community builders, local councillors, I want you to get involved. This is an ideal opportunity for you to lead on something with your communities, to actually say we can do these things. You've been telling me the work that I want us to. And I thought, well, if we were to do this, could have focused maybe on give 130,000 to this project over there or to that project over there. That project there or there would have been highly delighted, but it wouldn't have touched everybody. When resources are finite, I think this is such a good such a good idea to try to touch all the wards if they want to participate, if they want to get involved, if they want to share in this. Here is an opportunity. So if there is things in Durry or St James or anywhere else whereby quickly the community can come up and say, we'd like to spend this on that, we'll do it. I'm not sure if I told him yet, a lot of it will go through Councillor Vizard as the portfolio owner for communities. He likes having extra jobs for me. But he will then liaise with other people, a lot of work there for Matt to do, and I know that, but there's other people on the executive. So I think it's quite important. I mean, back to you, Councillor Palmer. I hear what you said, and I think Councillor Patrick answered some of the things. Yeah, I feel sure you will make your representations to the planning inspector. Of course you will. But we weren't dealing with the local plan again tonight. We weren't dealing with all those local frustrations that you have, and very passionate, and I know it's a forum, there's the camera on, and people want to hear it. But I think we need to focus on what we're doing. And I think I mentioned about the HMOs. I've said to you about the HMOs, what I'm going to do about that. I don't dislike the ideas. I'm going to try to do that. But this is another job. I'm saying to the officers, you've got to do this for me. And, I've got to think about their workload. I have to think about what they're doing and what we're doing. And many of the leaders came to a meeting whereby we're looking at what we've got to do for LGR, but I still know the day job has to be done, or business as usual. So I mentioned Councillor Williams, Councillor Fowle, about the walking football and yourself, the football. Well, I still hope to get out there and referee the odd game here. I don't referee walking football, Lord Mayor. I'm not refereeing groups of people over 50 to 70. They are a nightmare to referee, aren't they, Councillor Fuller? So I ain't doing that. I'll deal with enough of those people of that generation as it is. But I think it's quite important. Retrofit, thank you for those remarks about the retrofit. I think it is. Hopefully I've said enough to you about this fund that we're going to try to set up. I really and genuinely want to work with it. If you've got an idea of, well, do you not feel it could go quicker like this if you do this like that? It's going to be transparent, we just can't, it can't be like out my back pocket or whatever. It's got to be all done properly, and I think we will do it. So I think that gives a little bit of clarity. Inequality, I hear what you said about that, but we're trying our best to do whatever we can. The lack of funding from the government, rest assured. And the Deputy Lord Mayor came on a trip to us to Warwick with the Labour LGA, with Councillor Wood and the Deputy Leader, and they know full well we shout on behalf of Exeter and what we need to do in their respective political meetings. I feel sure as you do. The CAB, I do get it, by the way, Councillor Fulham, but as I said about the hierarchy of things, we've got to do it as we can. And we will circulate that letter on the 2nd of February to you all to see what we have replied. What I'm trying to say to you is we just haven't dismissed it out of hand. We're trying to work with all these people. You did mention, I put here a decade of the last 10 or 12 years. Well, most of that was this Labour Council, during those years, working through a decade of austerity brought about by the Lib Dem and the Conservative government, and then the Conservative government, we had to do a lot. Was it nearly 60 pence on every pound gone and everything else? I mean, Julie was on the telly last night moaning about that. So, you know, I really do. City living, well, there's some planning applications going on for Mary Archer's, and also up at the where is it, Clifton Hill. I think you won't be disappointed, and I'll be able to put that one to rest once and for all on it. Councillor Harding, thank you very much. I like that idea about on the roofs and everything else. And if I can, if we're all, and also Councillor Cookson and everything, and you did say about you like to bring a smile and sunshine. You give a little bit of a verse, I'll go, you can put the music to this. Bring me sunshine in your smile, bring me laughter all the while. In this world where we live, we should be more happiness. So with joy you can bring to each brand new bright tomorrow. So I'll leave it I haven't got time to be in your group, by the way, but I would love to. Seriously, it's a serious thing. We are trying to do and deliver on a number of things. Those amendments you brought us, I looked at them, we worked with them, we talked them through the officers, we're trying to find a way. Without money, we can address some of it. I think the Deputy Leader mentioned about the High Street and what you were doing about resilience. Excellent. This is why I need good people around me. And I think, I would hope on this occasion, and I know we all want to get our sound bites for Twitter or X, and we all want to do that, and we all want to knock each other because we're into election time, because that's what we do. Do you think, as Laura, Councillor Wright said, do you think we could get unanimity on this one? I'd like to think we could, but of course, you won't be able to. So, Lord Mayor, I hope I've answered those remarks, and take it from me, I shall not be singing again.
I was going to say thank you, Leader, but I'm not sure that's appropriate. Well, thank you, members. We're now moving to the vote. Can I please remind you that the law stipulates that a named vote is required when the council is setting its budget and council tax. Can I therefore ask Liz Smith to take over the proceedings? Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I read out names in alphabetical order as usual. Councillor Asbasham. For. Thank you. Councillor Atkinson's not with us tonight. Councillor Banyard.
Yeah.
Councillor Begley.
For.
Councillor Bennett.
Against.
Councillor Bialik.
For.
Councillor Cookson.
For.
Councillor Darling.
For.
Councillor Fole.
For.
Councillor Fulham.
Abstain.
Councillor Haig.
For.
Councillor Harding.
For.
Councillor Holland.
For.
Councillor Hughes is not with us. Councillor Hussain.
For.
Councillor Ketchin.
For.
Councillor Knott.
For.
Councillor Milibone.
For.
Councillor Kevin Mitchell is not with us this evening. Councillor Michael Mitchell.
Yes.
Councillor Moore.
Yes.
Councillor Palmer.
Against.
Councillor Parkhouse. Councillor Patrick. Councillor Payne.
For.
Councillor Powell is not with us. Councillor Reid.
For.
Councillor Rees. Councillor Ralston. Councillor Sheridan is not with us. Councillor Snow. Councillor Vizard. Councillor Wardle. Councillor Wettenall.
Yes.
Councillor Matthew Williams isn't with us. Councillor Ruth Williams.
For.
Councillor Wood.
For.
Councillor Wright.
For.
And Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I can confirm that the budget has been carried by 25 for, 6 against with 2 abstentions. Thank you. And now moving on to agenda item 8, starts at page 235 and relates to the appointment of 2 council independent persons. Councillor Byatt, I understand you're intending to move this item?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. There are 2 recommendations to this: to approve the appointment of Stephen Frank and Les Bright, and also a further recommendation to a vote of thanks to Professor Brian Curvey and Ian Brookin for their attendance, for their services in the past. And I'll leave it there, Lord Mayor.
Is there a seconder?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. I'm going to invite Dave Hodgson to present the report. He needs us.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The current independent person's term of office ends on the 26th of February this year, and therefore this report seeks to approve the appointments of 2 new independent persons. The independent persons are required by law to give a view in the event of an investigation under the Members' Code of Conduct. The experience of the 2 proposed candidates has been attached to the report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any technical questions? Thank you. We now open, Councillor Byatt.
No, nothing further, Lord Mayor.
Does anyone wish to speak? Councillor Wright?
Yes, thank you. In addition to thanking the 2 retiring independent people, I'd like to also thank the 2 new people that are coming forward, because it's not a post that brings much glory, but it's such an important thing for us to have here. So thank you very much to them.
No other speakers. I will move to the vote. No, she's sitting at the back. She's there. I now move to the vote. All in favour of the recommendations? Unanimous. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, members. That now brings us to the end of tonight's meeting. I remind members our next ordinary meeting of the council is on Tuesday, the 3rd of March, and I think starts at 6:10. It's starting at 6:10 to reflect that we're in the period of Ramadan.